Hello, welcome back. This time we are going to talk about some of the impacts and uses of testing. So, testing impacts your entire life. So, like, from birth to, well, all of it. So I'm going to give you some examples here. So we've got the APGAR test, which determines, like, literally at birth, if you need any medical attention. And I will include an overlay here that gives the criteria for how it's assessed. But it ranges from being a big, bright, screaming healthy baby to you need emergency medical attention like yesterday. Now, in terms of, so that's like birth. There's a wide range, but I'm just giving you a tease here because we're only in the beginning chunks of this class. School tests. So, measures of school readiness, learning disabilities, assessments for giftedness, and these in the United States range a lot. So, depending on the state you're in, like in California, you've got to score in the top, like 1% of ability. It's like IQ tests above 140. Or 145, it's like 3 standard deviations out. Versus in other states where you do not need to score in that, like, extraordinary, we're talking closer to like 1 in 20. You've also got measures of vocational interest, so like, what do you want to do with your life? I found that the test that I highlight, where I link right here, was actually really good at assessing that I would really enjoy a job either as a biostatistician or as a history professor, which isn't too far off, because I'm a quantitative psychologist who plays with biological data and loves old data, which I thought was kind of neat. Now, lastly, you got college admissions tests. So these, are designed in theory to give everyone a way to be compared across applicants. Obviously, there are other things that go into these college admissions tests, including but not limited to training, even the ability to take the test multiple times. At Wake Forest, for example, we are test optional, which means essentially if you did well, you submit it, and if you did badly, you don't. And that on its surface seems like a really good idea, but it actually ends up compounding. It rewards students who have the prep even more so. It doesn't actually advantage students. I mean, it kind of, but I have some serious qualms about the equability, the equal impact of test optional. But I will save that for another video. Now, in terms of, some of these are aren't really divided nice and cleanly. So, like, because your driver's license, you probably got that before you graduated college. Even I got mine before I graduated college. I was barely. And I'm happy to talk about that in office hours. But post-graduation, these still are really impactful. Like, your ability to, some companies really love using like the Myers-Briggs personality test for admission to for hiring practices. There are some major problems with this, but it's still a thing. A lot of these tests, so security clearance, you need to, I think you still have to, depending on what branch you're in. I may or may not, but totally do have a cousin in the FBI. I don't know why I was cagey about that. Where I believe they still have to pass polygraph tests, which are a test. They're not a great test. they're actually not admissible in the court of law in the United States because they're so unreliable. And their validity is But these are all ways that testing can impact your life. Even just measures of brain dysfunction, you can use them. Often they're used in like court cases where you've received some kind of damage, and to demonstrate that there's actually been a loss, you have your client take the same achievement ability test that they took pre-damage. So if I were to get brain damaged, we could either have brain damaged Mason retake the GRE, and she would probably score way worse. But I think also non-brain damaged Mason would score way worse because the GRE is an achievement test. It requires that you essentially, you need to prep for it. And because it measures past learning. And so while I may have learned all this different highfalutin vocabulary in ages back in college, I haven't used a lot of it, unless it's statistical in nature. So I'd probably do worse. Just because of time and experience. However, from a court setting, it can demonstrate the argument you're trying to make. Alright, so what do we use tests for? So we can use them for classification, including placement into various, like, jobs or vocations, as well as screening to identify people who would either be unlikely to succeed in a specific vocation. So say someone has horrible stage fright, just cannot give presentations, even if they're the best and most talented, like academic researcher. So for like a teaching balanced position like at Wake Forest, you can be the best researcher, but if you don't also have that ability to teach and present in front of people in whatever medium you've been destined to be in, you probably need to be screened out. So they can be used in that sense. People unlikely to succeed, those likely to succeed. Now also these can be used for certification to demonstrate if you have a specific skill. I actually am certified in Microsoft Excel and Access. Not that I've ever used it except as an example, like here, to illustrate that you can be certified in like weird stuff. That was my freshman year of college, back when I was a finance major. And then 2008 happened. So I'm no longer a finance major. But these can be used for certification as well as selection. So if you have a wide bout of students and you need to pick one, a straightforward way to do it is to pick those that have the highest score on whatever it is. Now, in addition, these can be used for diagnosis and treatment planning. So, if you have really hard hearing, for example, you may have a specific diagnosis of like being partially deaf, which could lead to different interventions, as opposed to someone who has like no hearing whatsoever. That may lead to a very different kind of treatment. So other uses of tests include self-knowledge. So I find it really helpful to take tests, and it's how I justify playing around with BuzzFeed. But they're great for giving you a sense of who you are. Giving that cutesy little like love languages test is really fun to take with a partner because it facilitates evaluation, or it facilitates conversation. Ooh, I don't know why So, in addition, these can be used for program evaluation. So, some colleges require students or certain majors to take a GRE psychology exam as like an exit test to see how much those students learned about psychology as a way to objectively compare students to see how much learning they actually did. And lastly, these are used for research. This is where my expertise comes in. I use a lot of tests. Now, I don't administer them, but I repurpose other people's tests to get good-ish, decent-ish measures of whatever I'm interested in. Cool! So that is wrapping up broad impacts and uses of testing. Now, I know these videos seem pretty short. What I'm doing is giving you broad overviews and kind of giving you an outline of what you should be reading about. There's a lot more detail in the textbook, but because I know these videos can be a bit exhausting because you also are, zooming around in your other classes. And so watching a lot of video where I essentially regurgitate the textbook is not super helpful, or, maybe it is, but read the textbook. I picked it because, well, first of all, it's super cheap, but it's also really well done. It's a little dated, and so I'm going to kind of incorporate more modern things, but it's kind of a trade-off. So I will see you later.